My own parents sued me for refusing to hand over my house to their golden daughter. They called me selfish, ungrateful, and threw me out like trash. I didn't beg. I stayed silent until I handed the judge a file. They went pale and started begging. Hey Reddit, my name is Miranda, and I'm 31 years old. I bought my first house at 29, not some luxury mansion or flashy downtown condo. Just a modest, sunlit two-bedroom home in the suburbs. It had creaky floors and outdated kitchen tiles, but it was mine. Every inch of it had been earned with sleepless nights, saved paychecks, and a decade of independence no one ever thought I could achieve. Especially not my parents, because to them, I was always the invisible daughter, the one who didn't shine as brightly as her younger sister. Chelsea the golden girl, the one who never heard a no, who got everything handed to her with a smile and a bow. Private school, car at 16, a designer purse collection by 19. Me, I had to practically beg for clearance clothes, and fought tooth and nail to put myself through community college. But I never complained. Instead, I worked, I studied, I grew quiet, learned to navigate life on my own terms, and eventually built a quiet, successful career in graphic design. I didn't rub it in their faces. I didn't make dramatic exits. I just drifted, far enough to breathe, close enough to still be called family when it was convenient, until the house changed everything. The house represented more than just shelter. For me, it was proof that I had made it. Without handouts, I scraped together a down payment, budgeted every single renovation, painted the walls myself, and turned that place into a safe haven, a space that finally reflected who I was. Not the version of me they decided to overlook. But the moment Chelsea found out I'd bought a house before her, everything exploded. You bought a house, she said one day during a family dinner, her voice already tight with disdain. That's cute. How are you affording it on your little laptop job? My mom gave a low, dismissive chuckle like Chelsea had cracked a clever joke. My dad just raised an eyebrow and went back to his steak. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The deed was in my name. The key was in my bag. And the mortgage payments were coming from my account. I wish I could say that was the end of it, that they just mocked me and moved on. But things escalated fast. A week later, I received a text from my mother that made my stomach turn. Your sister is moving back into town. She needs a place. Your house has 2 bedrooms. We're going to get things settled for her move. Excuse me, I called her immediately. Mom, what are you talking about? Chelsea's not moving into my house. She sounded offended. Don't be selfish. Miranda, it's just until she finds her own place. She's had a rough breakup. Be a good sister. Absolutely not, I replied flatly. This is my home. Then she hit me with it. You wouldn't even have that house if it weren't for us. You think you got there all on your own. We raised you, fed you, you owe us and her. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't about helping Chelsea. This was about control, power, entitlement. I said no, repeatedly. I told them Chelsea was not welcome to move in. Not temporarily, not ever. I reminded them that I didn't owe them my house. And I hung up. That's when the harassment began. They showed up uninvited, banging on the door at 9 p.m., trying to guilt-trip me in person. My mom cried on my front lawn. My dad paced and muttered about how ungrateful I was after everything they'd done. Chelsea came too, acting smug, throwing digs about how cute my starter home was. I called the cops the 3rd time they showed up. That shut them down, for a while. But then I got served. They sued me. Yes, my own parents filed a lawsuit, claiming I had verbally agreed to let Chelsea live in the house, and that I had reneged on the agreement, causing her emotional distress and housing instability. I couldn't believe what I was reading. It was a complete fabrication. There was never an agreement. Never a text, never a voicemail, never a witness, just their word against mine. But they were banking on the fact that I'd be too scared, too overwhelmed to fight them. They were wrong. I hired a lawyer. And I stayed silent. Not a word on social media. Not a word in family group chats. I didn't answer their calls or respond to the hate-filled messages Chelsea kept sending. Instead, I focused on the one thing that could destroy their entire case: documentation. You see, one thing I'd learned from being the forgotten daughter was how to keep records. I had every receipt, every call log, every doorbell camera clip showing them harassing me, every voicemail saved, every nasty text from Chelsea, including the one where she said, "You better make space for me. That 2nd bedroom's mine whether you like it or not." I compiled everything into a neatly organized file, labeled, dated, indexed. My lawyer was stunned. "You did most of our work for us," she said, but I wasn't done. I had one more file, one I hadn't shown anyone. It was from years ago, a journal entry I had photographed from my mom's old diary when I was a teenager. She'd written, "Miranda will be fine. She's too stubborn to need us. Chelsea needs more, she's softer. More delicate, we'll make sure she always has enough." They never knew I saw that. The day of the hearing came. It wasn't a dramatic courtroom showdown like in movies. It was quiet, controlled, and painfully formal. My parents sat on the other side of the courtroom looking proud, like they were teaching me a lesson. Chelsea was there too, dressed like she was attending a gala. Not a civil court hearing. I didn't even look at them. I sat straight, calm, and handed my attorney the file. One by one, she presented the evidence. The text messages, the security footage, the call logs, the voicemail where Chelsea screamed that she'd trash my house if she ever got in. And finally, the diary entry with a date. A scan in context. The judge reviewed it all. Then he looked at my parents and said the most satisfying words I've ever heard in my life. "This lawsuit is baseless. Not only is there no evidence of an agreement, but the defendant has provided overwhelming documentation of harassment. Case dismissed, and I strongly suggest the plaintiffs refrain from pursuing further action, or the court will consider sanctions." My parents went pale. Chelsea, for the first time in her life, was speechless after the hearing. As I gathered my things, my mom approached me, no more smugness. No threats, just desperation. "Miranda," she whispered, "you didn't have to do this to us." I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "You did this to yourselves," and I walked out. As I walked out of that courtroom, I didn't feel victorious, not in the way you'd expect. I didn't strut, I didn't cry, I didn't even smile. What I felt was release. Like a massive weight that had been tied to my chest for years had finally snapped off and rolled away. But I knew it wasn't over. Because people like my parents, and especially people like Chelsea, don't just let go. They regroup, they twist the narrative. They try again, and that's exactly what happened next. The smear campaign began almost immediately. Within 48 hours of the lawsuit being dismissed, my aunt called me, not to congratulate me, but to scold me. "I don't know what you did in that courtroom," she said coldly, "but your poor mother is devastated. She said you humiliated the whole family." Humiliated, they sued me, lied under oath, tried to force me out of the house I bought. And now I was the one tarnishing the family name. I hung up, then came the Facebook posts. My mom's subtle, manipulative little updates. The kind designed to make people feel sorry for her without giving away what actually happened. Sometimes the ones you raise turn their backs when you need them the most. After all we sacrificed, we were discarded like garbage. Chelsea joined in with cryptic Instagram captions like, "When you show kindness to the wrong people, they weaponize it," and of course, their circle of enablers ate it up. But here's the thing, I didn't care anymore. I'd spent my entire life twisting myself into knots to earn their approval, dimming myself so Chelsea could shine, staying quiet to keep the peace, working overtime to prove I was worth something to people who had already decided I wasn't. But that ended in that courtroom. So I stayed silent. I didn't defend myself publicly. I didn't argue, I didn't explain. I just lived. And the more I did that, the more I chose peace, the more their little campaigns started to fall apart. People noticed. Friends who had once blindly believed my mom's version of things started reaching out quietly. "I didn't know they sued you. That's insane. Chelsea told everyone you were letting her stay with you. Why would she lie?" Even my cousin Melissa, who was Chelsea's maid of honor years ago, messaged me privately to say, "I always thought something was off, but I didn't realize how deep it went." It was like a fog was lifting, not just for me, but for everyone who had been caught in their web of manipulation for years. Then something happened that truly shocked me. I got a letter in the mail from my dad. A real, handwritten letter, like something from another era. At first, I debated throwing it away, but curiosity got the better of me. It was strange, apologetic but not really. He talked about how things got out of hand, and how they never meant for it to become legal. He said Chelsea was going through a hard time, that my mother had been carried away with emotion, and that he hoped we could all move on. No apology for the lies, no ownership of the manipulation, no remorse for trying to take my home away. Just deflection. I didn't respond. Instead, I sent a copy of the letter to my lawyer and added it to the documentation, in case they ever tried anything again. And then I locked the file away, just like I locked them out of my life. I changed my locks. I updated my home security system. I took a few weeks off work and drove up the coast with a friend, not because I was running from anything, but because for once I could. I was free, but the real healing, that didn't come from the silence. It came from the reflection. One night, back from the road trip, I sat in my living room, the same room my mother once criticized as bare and uninspired, and looked around. The place was quiet, but it didn't feel empty. It felt earned. I ran my fingers along the windowsill I had sanded and painted myself. I smiled at the coffee table that still had scratches from when I assembled it wrong the first time. I curled up on the sofa I'd bought secondhand, remembering how proud I'd been to afford it. This house wasn't just shelter. It was my sanctuary. Every piece of furniture, every coat of paint, every creaky floorboard told a story, not of perfection, but of resilience. I had built this alone, and no one, not even my own family, could take that from me. Eventually, the drama fizzled out. My parents stopped trying to contact me. Chelsea moved in with some new boyfriend she met online. I heard she crashed his car, and then tried to get him to buy her a replacement. Typical, but I wasn't invested anymore. For the first time in my life, I stopped waiting for apologies that were never coming. I stopped trying to fix things I didn't break. I stopped proving myself to people who were committed to misunderstanding me. I started choosing me. These days, I spend more time with friends who feel like family. I host game nights, plant herbs in the backyard, and take long walks in the evening without feeling like I'm walking on eggshells. People ask me if I'll ever forgive my parents. The answer, I already did. Not because they earned it, but because I refuse to carry their weight any longer. Forgiveness isn't letting them off the hook. It's setting myself free, and as for Chelsea, she can keep chasing whatever throne they built for her in their minds. I'm no longer part of that court. I'm building my own kingdom, and this time, the gates stay locked, unless someone truly deserves a key.